Hello, thank you for joining us. We begin with an image from the Patapsco River near Baltimore, where nothing looks right. The bridge that protects us from the water is in the water. A cargo vessel stuck, speared on the pylon it crashed into at 1:30 in the morning early Tuesday. The bridge once spanned a vital shipping route to the port of Baltimore. Authorities were searching for 6 people who had been working on the bridge. Now it's a recovery mission.
Based on the length of time that we've gone in this search, the extensive search efforts that we've put into it, the water temperature, that at this point we do not believe that we're going to find any of these individuals still alive. We are going to suspend the active search and rescue efforts.
2 other people were rescued from the water. CBS Evening News anchor Norah O'Donnell has more from Baltimore.
Dramatic video captured the horrifying moment the massive cargo ship, nearly 1,000 feet long, crashed into a support column on the Francis Scott Key Bridge in Baltimore.
The whole bridge just fell down. Start, whoever, everybody. The whole bridge just collapsed.
Within seconds, a large portion of the bridge collapses, plunging into the Patapsco River.
We are still investigating what happened, but we are quickly gathering details. The preliminary investigation points to an accident. We haven't seen any credible evidence of a terrorist attack.
A closer look at the video shows the ship heading south at about 1:24 a.m. when the lights go dark but quickly on again. A minute later, plumes of black smoke can be seen billowing from the ship's chimney. Once again, it appears the ship loses its lights. A minute after they come back on, the vessel slams into the bridge.
Never would you think that you would physically see the Key Bridge tumble down like that. It looked like something out of an action movie.
Sources tell CBS News multiple alarms rang out on ship. After several failed attempts to fix the loss of propulsion, the pilot issued a mayday call, giving officials time to stop traffic on the bridge.
These people are heroes. They saved lives last night.
The impact of the crash was so loud, it jolted Donald Heinbuck, who lives nearby, out of his sleep.
What did it feel like?
It felt just like an earthquake. We've had some earthquakes here before, and that's exactly what it felt like. And associated with that was the rolling thunder, which I thought was very unusual.
What was the rolling thunder?
It was the sound of the bridge collapsing into the Patapsco River.
Well, it's just incredible to see this firsthand. I mean, we are not far from this. And of course, this bridge carries some 30,000 people every day. It is a major commuter route, and now it is completely shut down.
The FBI using robotic cameras underwater to search for 6 construction workers who were on the bridge. They are now presumed dead by their employer. 2 survivors were pulled from the chilly water this morning. 24 members of the NTSB are on the site leading the investigation. They want to examine the voyage data recorder.
It will be critical. It's a critical piece of our investigation, which is why we have a recorder's team here.
Authorities say the Singapore-flagged vessel was headed from Baltimore to Sri Lanka, going 9 miles per hour. None of the crew was hurt. Today, President Joe Biden said the federal government will, quote, move heaven and earth to reopen the port and pay for the rebuilding.
I told them we're going to send all the federal resources they need as we respond to this emergency. And I mean all the federal resources. And we're going to rebuild that port together.
And Evening News anchor Norah O'Donnell joins us now from the site in Baltimore. Norah, what's the latest you're hearing about the search effort and investigation effort, and how hard is that to do given the weather?
Yeah, it is cold here and the waters are chilly. But what we heard from federal, state and local authorities is that all day long they have been operating as if this is a search and rescue operation. But we did hear from the construction company today that said that they believe that all 6 of their workers are presumed dead. There were 2 survivors, one who fell and apparently survived and is a Baltimore shock trauma, and then another who Governor Wes Moore told us in an interview was the leader of the group and that's miraculously was able to survive the governor meeting with some of the families of those who are unaccounted for, missing, and saying that they're a prayerful group of people. And so certainly that's part of the big concern here, even before they talk about rebuilding rebuilding. They're really just concerned about the victims here. And, just on a personal note, John, we're here outside someone's home just over the river here. We went out on a boat today with someone who's lived here his entire life. Jimmy, he is in the cement business, and he said he just can't believe it. I mean, he woke up in the middle of the night. He took his boat out in the middle of the night. He said he never thought something like this would happen. And people really are in a state of shock about what has happened here.
That bridge, as someone who grew up in that area, that bridge is a massive part of your life if you live around there, even if you don't live nearby. It must be totally devastating to the community. Tell me, Norah, about the investigation part of it. What are some of the key questions that remain unanswered?
Yeah, I mean, that bridge is part of the skyline here in Baltimore, as you say. The investigation ongoing at this hour. One of the things we heard today was that there is so much twisted metal and debris in the waters that has slowed efforts. Kris Van Cleave, who's our transportation correspondent, has been talking with officials. And, he said today it's like a U.S. Nimitz-style aircraft carrier plunging into a bridge. I mean, that's how heavy these ships are, 3 times the weight of cargo than it was just decades ago. So it's very, very heavy. That has caused a lot of debris that's in the water that is slowing and hampering the investigation. But one of the things they're going to be looking at, the maintenance record of that ship. I mean, how does the power go out? I mean, you look at that video very closely that we showed in our piece tonight for the CBS Evening News, the lights flickering on and off. I mean, how does that happen, So they're going to be looking at that. Were there problems with the propulsion in the past? So certainly the ship's maintenance record is part of that. They'll also, of course, look at the stability of the bridge involved. And they say this could take months. They're going to look for what is essentially a voyage. They have a data recorder on board the ship, too, to look at that. But I have to tell you, John, the one thing I was struck about in just talking to officials today is that at the last minute, I mean, this happened so quickly that the last minute there was that Mayday call. It got to the transportation officials at Maryland. They stopped additional traffic from getting on that bridge. Had that not happened, this would have been far worse. John?
Thank God it did. Norah O'Donnell on the scene for us in Baltimore. Thank you, Norah. Perhaps you've had a nightmare where you cannot stop the crash you see coming and all the tools at your disposal are useless. Here's our CBS News senior transportation correspondent Kris Van Cleave with a report on what happened on that shipping vessel just before impact.
By daybreak, the force of the collision was clear. Pieces of the mangled Francis Scott Key Bridge and crushed cargo containers littered the deck of the Dolly. But the first sign of trouble here, when the lights flickered and went out on board. The giant ship had lost its engine, its electronics, and much of its ability to steer, leaving it on a collision course with the bridge and little time to avert disaster. A Mayday call went out as the nightmare scenario unfolded. Michael Kucharski is a former NTSB senior Marine investigator.
Losing power as you're approaching a bridge would be just about the worst case scenario.
Loaded down with heavy containers, the captain tried to quickly slow down the more than 900-foot-long cargo ship by dropping its port anchor. Dark smoke could be seen billowing from its stacks, likely the backup generator coming online. But the ship never regained engine power, and it struck one of the 2 main structural support columns of the bridge. Ben Schaefer is a structural engineer.
Once the bridge was struck by a container ship of that size, there's not a bridge that we build, that's any level of economy and efficiency that's going to survive that.
It's happened before. In 1980, during a blinding thunderstorm, a cargo ship slammed into a support column of Tampa's Sunshine Skyway Bridge. A 1,200-foot span collapsed. 35 people were killed. Since then, cargo ships have more than quadrupled in size.
In the world of infrastructure system, it's a failure, right? I mean, the bridge is gone, the port is closed, people have died.
The NTSB is going to have to contend with a lot of debris on that ship and in the water, but they want to get their hands on the voice and data recorder that should be on that ship. They're also going to pore over its maintenance history, including reports there may have been an inspection that turned up problems with the propulsion system earlier this year, but they're also going to look at the design and maintenance of the bridge. John?
Kris Van Cleave in Baltimore for us. Thank you, Kris.